Is up, ladies and gentlemen? This is Anthony Gazenza with the Orange and Black Insider Bengals podcast, joined by John Sheeran. I'm in a little bit of a different digs here, John. As I mentioned before we took the air here, my usual room is being built out and changing. So I'm actually going to start really transitioning my Bengals cave, my man cave, my podcast cave into the garage. I have no idea if people are going to be walking by, staring at me, looking at me like I'm a goon and/or other sound effects you may or may not hear, but we're here. It's draft week. The Cincinnati Bengals are going to be on the clock in just about 27 hours, I think. So a lot to talk about tonight. How you doing, bud?
I've never seen that movie, 27 Hours. I feel like it's going to be less stressful than what happened in that movie. Oh, wait, is your garage door open? So just like you're just looking
Garage door is open, so I'm just out here. I'm getting the breeze.
That's such a California move. I'm so jealous.
It is a little bit, but I also I don't know what my neighbors will think of me after this one. I usually am in the friendly confines of my own room, and so I can kind of hide out. A lot of them, the ones that I know around here, kind of know I'm a big Bengals guy. They see the stuff on my car and all that kind of stuff. But whatever. Anyway, that's not what we're here to talk about. We are here to talk about a lot of different things as it pertains to the Cincinnati Bengals and the NFL draft. We have a couple special announcements, John. Do you want to do the honors on this one, or do you want to split? You do the honors. You do the honors of a couple special guests that we are going to be having over the course of the next couple of days.
Well, for starters, later on in this program, we're going to have legendary NFL agent Leigh Steinberg join the program to talk a little NFL draft and whatnot. And then tomorrow, we're going to kind of lead into the first round of the NFL draft, joined by a very special guest, a former Bengals modern day legend, I like to call him. He was kind of like a meme at one point, but for a good reason. The Sanu Canoe. Mohamed Sanu is going to join us to talk about some Bengals and some endeavors that he's embarking on with a great organization. We're going to catch up on him. It's been about, I don't know, like 8-7 years since he's donned a Bengals uniform. I haven't really heard anything much about him except a wonderful post written on Cincy Jungle about what he's doing over in Africa and with the organization, helping out people. And it's going to be great to catch up with him for sure.
It's going to be good to catch up with him, hear about that. And we are, of course, going to be relying on the generosity of Bengals fans. There is a GoFundMe endeavor that he has started to help fund all of the cool things that he's doing. We're going to hear more about that. And of course, talking about tonight's big guest, John, do you know some of the names that Leigh Steinberg, just off the top of your heads? Leigh Steinberg represented a lot of big Bengals players, not so much recently, but big high picks of theirs in the past. Can you name a couple of them or one of them?
Well, we talked with him maybe 2-3 years ago, and I believe was it Dan Wilkinson?
That's one of them. Yeah.
I know he represented, or maybe still represents Tua. I don't know if that's still the case. But as far as Bengals players, I feel Wilkinson was the one that stood out to me when it first came to mind.
So that was he currently represents Patrick Mahomes as well. So that's definitely something. Yeah. So
minor client,
just maybe my tiny client. But Dan Wilkinson was one. David Klingler was one. Akili Smith was one. Kajana Carter. So a lot of these guys that were like the big guys that unfortunately led to a lot of heartbreak with the Bengals and the fans. But we talk about that, some funny, we're going to talk about that, some funny stories and all kinds of different stuff with him. So looking forward to that. Looking forward to Mohamed Sanu coming on the program tomorrow as well. And then we're going to lead into the NFL draft and have some fun, probably take your questions and do all kinds of different things tomorrow and really kind of have a little roundtable discussion. But John, to get things started, we're going to do a one draft profile. We're going to do a mock draft, and then we're going to have the interview with Leigh Steinberg coming up here. So with that being said, let's talk about the draft prospect that we want to start with tonight. And this is hopefully it's a little bit abbreviated, but I'm not going to spoil what you put out there for the a mock draft for the Cincinnati Bengals that you put on A to Z Sports here. I'll share the link later, but I'm not going to spoil it yet because I want to get to our mock draft and all kinds of different things here. So one of the picks though was this young man. And this is one of the more intriguing guys in this year's draft because I'll talk about it towards the end of this profile here, but how much production was missed and how much, how much production could there have been if not for a basically a generational talent in front of him. And of course, we are talking about Roshan Johnson, the I hate to say backup because he's not. I mean, talent wise shows otherwise, but you see here he is 6'2", 222. He's a senior. He's 22 years old. A lot of twos. 22 years old, 222, 6'2", senior. Just turned 22, so not overly old here. 4.58 in the 40-yard dash. Not terrible, but not a burner by any means. And there goes, see, here goes the cars. So, but here you go. Here you see here the senior 222, 4.58, and you know there were a lot of things that he did as both a runner and a passer, a receiver rather, in these past couple of years. He's a 4-year guy. Obviously, sat behind Bijan Robinson, and both of them made a nice two-headed monster though for the Texas Longhorns. The big questions for me, there are a couple of questions, and that's what pushes him to the middle of this year's draft, potentially round 3, round 4, that sort of thing. But there are some other things with him that here he is as a receiver. Nice move out of the backfield, shifty. I see some good vision. I see some good shiftiness. Here he is as a receiver again, coming out of the backfield. Not many times does the first guy get him down, and here he is. Nice diving catch here. Kind of wish he would stayed on his feet, but nice catch there. And then here he is, another dump-off pass that he takes for good yardage here down the sideline for a big gain. Now here he is as a running back. Look at the shiftiness again. Break tackles, break tackles. Here he is again, break tackles. There's one that just exudes exactly what he is about towards the end of the clips here. You see it bounce out, bounce outside, find the room, find the crease. There he is again. Find the hole off to the left side. Not a huge gain, but a nice one to get a first down. Here's one. Look at this. This is the one that just exudes him. Look at how many tackles he breaks here to get into the end zone. Only 23 touchdowns as a collegiate athlete. 5 of those, I believe, were last year. Here's the RAS, 8.66 overall. Great size grade, composite grade good. And you look at that 4.58, did not do the agility testing as of recently. This, of course, courtesy of Kent Lee Platt. And okay explosion grade. So 8.66 RAS, still up there in terms of, RAS score and running back. So tackle breaking machine that I see. He's got a nose. He's not the home run guy, but he's just got a nose for finding first downs and extending drives. And there is value in that. I question the breakaway speed. That's indicative is at close to the 4.6 yards per carry average. And then, of course, I question the big play ability. I like the versatility and ability to catch out of the backfield, but I'm referencing this as well. The Bijan effect is what I'm calling it. There's pros and cons to that. Maybe we don't know enough about this guy, and who knows how high the production would have been if not for Bijan Robinson, right? But because of that, he also didn't beat out Bijan Robinson. So if you're talking about a generational talent, he was supplanted by one. But these guys came out with as a great two-headed monster and a good attack for the Longhorns offense. Not a lot of wear and tear on the tires either. About 330 or so carries in his collegiate career. He's upwards of close to 6.0 yards per carry for his collegiate career as well, John. So a guy that I think, I love the ability to evade the first tacklers or more than one tackler. I love the ability to maneuver and find the first down. This isn't a guy, though, we looked last week at Jahmyr Gibbs. This isn't a guy, though, that's gonna be hitting home run balls, so to speak, from the running back position all the time. This is kind of a little bit more, probably a little bit quicker, maybe a little bit more athletic of what Samaje Perine gave you. And I think, again, there is value to that, and the Bengals recognize that type of potential. And I think this is a player that not necessarily as a 3-down guy, at least not right away, but a very, very good complementary back in the NFL going forward, at least to start his NFL career. I'd love to hear what you think about him, though.
Yeah, I've researched a lot about this guy just because he just fits what the Bengals are likely looking for running back. His prime score, which is what Ace Boogie, New Stripe City, that's his whole thing. and he has a great track record of predicting Bengals fits. So Rashawn scored 4.08, which is pretty high, considering like the high score is like 4.5. So if you're looking at day 2 running backs, Rashawn is one of the favorites to actually become a Bengal, and it just makes sense because when you think about what they're valuing in the running backs in this class and what they value running back in general, they lost Samaje Perine, which is why Rashawn gets compared to Perine so much, because out of all the backs in this class, he's the best combination of runner, pass blocker, and pass receiver. Like, there's a lot of running backs who are really good at 2 of those things, maybe 1 of those things, but Rashawn is pretty good at all 3. And like, you're right, he's not the home run hitter. He's not a 4-3 guy. It's not really required to be successful at running back, even though it's a great feature and attribute to have. But for a guy who's not going to have negative runs, it's basically him. And that's why he gets compared to Perine so much. But I think he's more explosive. I think he's like, Perine had some pretty tough, nasty runs and whatnot, but I feel like it's more easy for Rashawn just because he's a better athlete. He's also younger, that helps too. But just the size, the power, the balance, and again, the all-around ability, it makes sense why he would be a day 2 pick for the Bengals, because typically those are the running backs that they try to target early in the draft. So all that from a football sense makes sense. And just doing more research on him as the person, like, the guy just screams Bengal to me. Like, he was born, I think, on the border between Louisiana and Texas, but he was always a diehard Texas Longhorns fan. He was the first commit to the 2019 recruiting class as a dual threat quarterback back in 2017. So he had a dream of playing in Austin, playing for the Burnt Orange. He was going to compete behind like Sam Ehlinger in like 2019. He enrolled early. He graduated high school early to get there, to go through the program and everything. But they had injuries at running back. So he switches positions. So he has this dream of playing for Texas, right? And he's a dual threat quarterback. He's a pretty good one. He's a 4-star recruit. And then he switches positions right before, he gets to the program and everything. And then Bijan Robinson comes like a year later, and he's always behind him, right? He's productive as a freshman, and he's projected to take a next step, but they get this guy, Bijan Robinson, like you said, a generational talent at running back, and he just stays there, right? Like, most guys in this position would transfer to try to get a better opportunity, and I don't blame any of those players, because try to get your bag, man. Try to get the best opportunity to get drafted early because you have that talent, but he decided to stick around at the college that he loved, at the college that he wanted to go there forever as a child, and he just stayed the course, never had more than 96 carries after that freshman year that had a lot of promise. And to think, after all of that, to just being great spirits throughout, just a great practice guy, a great locker room guy, like everything that the coaches, Sarkisian, say about him is just, it raves his character. It just makes so much sense the Bengals would fall in love with this guy.
Yeah, almost 2,200 rushing yards in his career. 649 of those came as a freshman. Never really he got 569 as a junior in 21, 554. And then of course, the COVID year, they did play 10 games that year in 2020, but that shortened things. So he really, kind of, as you mentioned, drew a little bit of the short end of the stick and kind of did so and rolled with it, rolled with it pretty well. And you look at the receiving yards here, actually the second best receiving numbers came in 2022, 14 catches, 128 yards, did have a touchdown reception, 3 total touchdown receptions in his career. So some versatility. Again, it's kind of one of those guys where I don't know that he's always going to just, absolutely jump off the tape with these big long runs like we saw with Jahmyr Gibbs when we previewed him last week. It's not the same player, but there's still a lot of value in a guy like this that can, avoid tacklers, find the crease, get the first down, extend the drive, and make sure that a drive is not a punt, not a field goal, but get you closer to the end zone. And, oh, by the way, as he gets towards the end zone, you notice, that was close to the red zone, that final run there where he was just bouncing off about 8 different guys. One guy tried to tackle him twice on the same play, that poor guy. But, you see that and you go, well, there's the value in the red zone and goal line situations when you don't want to waste, 3 plays trying to just punch it in from 1 yard out. You want to get it in on that first try. This is a guy that could potentially do that pretty easily.
So where would you take him? Because he's projected to go somewhere.
Uh-oh. We might have lost John there. We'll have to get him back. He asked the question, though, where I would take him. That's where I have some difficulty with Roschon Johnson. I have some difficulty with him. I don't know what happened to you, but
What the hell?
yeah.
Come on, StreamYard.
Yeah. I don't know exactly where I would take him, because it feels like, in some respects, because of the lack of production, because of, him basically being a backup running back, for a lack of better terms, it's hard to justify, and the positional value, it's hard to justify a guy like that in round 3, right? Even if it's in the back of round 3, it's hard to justify that. But if he's a guy that you feel can be a heavy rotational back, if he's a guy that you feel can do all of the things and then some that Samaje Perine gave you, maybe you feel that I didn't hone in on that because I didn't see a ton of it with the pass blocking prowess. I didn't find a ton of it on tape in the limited scouring that I did. I saw a couple times where he would get in there. They would do kind of the wishbone type of formation, quarterback and shotgun formation, 2 running backs on each side of him, and he would run up to the pile and block for Bijan. I saw a couple of those plays. So, I mean, there are a lot of things with this guy that I think the Bengals staff would love. Talent, yes, but character and what he's willing to do as a team player, so to speak, I think there's a lot of things to like there. This is just one of the things that maybe coaches, maybe staffs just like him more than what the production says and what us dummies here talking, jabbing on these shows talk about, right? I mean, I could see him going in the 3rd round. I could see him going middle of day 3. And I could see the explanation of both. And again, I point to that quote unquote Bijan effect that would makes this really, really hard to predict.
Yeah, I had him going in my mock. I had the Bengals trading back out of the 2nd round a few spots into the 3rd round and taking Rashawn, just because the players that you think won't go that early, the players who do go early, are because coach's favorite, right? Guys who just acclimate within whatever scheme and locker room that they have perfectly. And I feel like that's the fit here. I think he's one of their top 5 running backs in this class. I think he's probably right behind Zach Sharp in it. Yeah, like I think he just checks all the boxes, and like 392 career carries because he's never been a starter. It's worrisome, but like again, like wear and tear or a lack of being overworked in college. It's been something the Bengals value, right? Like Jeremy Hill, Joe Mixon, Giovanni Bernard, never have they invested such a high pick in a running back that's kind of been ran into the ground. So I feel like him having fresh legs and staying the course and doing all the right things at Texas, I think that speaks volumes to them. I don't know for sure if they have interest, but it just seems like he's checking all the boxes, and especially because of the size. A lot of these running backs are small, and
he's tall, he's big.
Yeah, he's not 6'2", by the way. I think he measured at 6 foot at his combine pro day. He might have been 6'2" at like Texas or whatever, but still tall. Okay.
Yeah, I saw him at 6'2" somewhere. I must have got some bad intel on that one. But wouldn't it be? I mean, it would just kind of. There's some similarities with this guy a little bit. This guy was a little shorter, squattier than Roschon Johnson, but Rudy Johnson drafted in the 4th round by the Cincinnati Bengals. You see a 40-yard dash, John, 4.57 seconds, right? And so what did Rudy, I mean, he ran behind a great line. Rudy had some of the best seasons statistically by a Bengals running back ever. And what did he do? He knew how to not go down on that first contact, whether it was a spin move out of contact, just a little cut, or find that crease and have the vision to have a couple of big runs. Again, not the home run guy, but a really, really effective running back, a guy that just had a nose for the end zone, a guy who had a nose for the first down marker. I know we don't like to compare players in this regard. We did that with Geno Atkins last week in some respects with Jalen Redmond, but again, I mean, wouldn't it just be kind of poetic if the Bengals go 4th round with this guy, and there are some similarities, and maybe this is a guy initially kind of like Rudy, bide your time a little bit to become that starter, and take the opportunity and run with it, so to speak.
It would be poetic. I don't think he's going to last to the 4th, but it would be poetic that Anthony Cosenza's last player profile of the draft season ends up being a Bengals pick. Round of applause to you, sir. I think he did like 20. And
I don't know if I did that many. No, I don't know if I did that many. And I mean, don't applaud too hard. There always seems to be at least one error in each of those. So this is why hey, if we got any producer wannabes out there or anything like that, let me know. Hit us up. That way you can correct all the dummy things that I do. But I know I appreciate it. They're fun to make. It's fun to look at some of the tape, and some of them are obvious players that we take a look at, and others not so much. But again, we tried to run a little bit more of the gamut this year in terms of backup quarterback, backup defensive tackle, running backs, that sort of thing. Hopefully you guys enjoyed them. Maybe we'll run through a couple more on some of these shows that we're going to do over the weekend. Best available, all that kind of stuff. We'll see what we've got. We're going to play a little jazz this weekend. But speaking of play a little jazz, we're going to get to our final mock draft, and then, of course, an interview with the great Leigh Steinberg to conclude the show. Really looking forward to that, and looking forward to your guys' reaction to that. It's great talking to him. But before we get to our final mock draft, want to remind folks, got to subscribe. If you want all of our content, you got to subscribe to our YouTube channel. I believe you can click the show icon. Some people are saying now it's above. Other people are saying it's below. I don't know. The show icon's on the screen if you're watching on YouTube. Click that. Click subscribe. Click the bell to be notified when we go live, when new content is available. And, of course, give us a thumbs up if you can, if you like what we're doing and all the things we provide on the channel. You got to go give a thumbs up to the Cincy Jungle Facebook page. Keep it to cincyjungle.com for news, opinions, analysis, and your podcasts. And, of course, if you like the audio side of things, iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, this show, Matt Minnick Show, Bengal Jim, who, by the way, may be joining us from Kansas City via video this weekend. We'll try and get him there. He's going to be at the draft, so we're looking forward to that. Of course, the great 3 and Out crew, Jason and Kevin. They'll probably be pitching in with us this weekend as well, so looking forward to that. Get all your podcasts there. And, of course, don't forget to check out my man John's site, A to Z Sports. He's doing some great work over there. Now we can promote, well, after this, we can promote your mock draft. I will put the link to your mock draft after this one. So that being said, John, fire it up. I think you got, what'd you go with this time? Did we go Pro Football Focus?
We might as well just end it with that. It was our first 2 mocks as well, so I got.
Okay.
We're fully on public board at this point. The consensus is in, and the sliders are basically the same from last time. We're gonna go all 7 rounds. We're gonna try to get through this quick though. We're gonna be kind of on the clock here, so here we go. And the Panthers take Bryce Young, as expected. Don't see too many surprises here.
Are you buying in? Is it it's Stroud that's starting to get a little some stuff that's not complimentary to him, or in terms of where he's going to get drafted? Are you buying that, or is that just smokescreen stuff at this
I've
point?
seen so many Ohio State quarterbacks at this point fall further than they probably should, so it wouldn't surprise me if Stroud's like pick 7, but it makes sense if he goes to the Colts here. Texans apparently, I don't know if that's a smoke screen with Will Levis. I know nothing about this top 10 except I have heard Tyree Wilson is a favorite for the Texans, and I don't think Jalen Carter leaves the top 6. So again, no real surprises. Dalton Kincaid to the Steelers, that might be a little bit of a surprise. But Miles Murphy, Bengals target, Lucas Van Ness, who was talked about by Dave Lapham as a favorite to be picked 28 if he's there. He goes 15th to the Jets. And Kalijah Kancey goes 26th. Brian Bresee goes 27th. So we got some popular names here who are still available. Michael Mayer.
Darnell Wright also gone. A couple picks before there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Emmanuel Forbes and Michael Mayer, though, are at the top, and they're probably going to be at the top of the Bengals board. I think Anthony Mayer was probably looked at as the favorite about a month ago, maybe 2 months ago, especially after the combine. But like if Emmanuel Forbes is here, I think he's probably the pick. Like there's just too much smoke and actual connections with him and the team. If everyone is saying it, I tend to believe it's true because the Bengals are not very good at hiding these things.
I'm in agreement with you, but can you scroll down? Yeah, so Gibbs is available.
Yeah.
And so that would be my only maybe DeJuan Jones as well, I guess. But Forbes, I think, is the guy they probably, if he's there, they would pounce. But that Gibbs being available gives me a little bit of pause in terms of, how hard would they think? Maybe even Mayer too, but I think Mayer would probably be of these 3, number 3. So I'm inclined to still go Forbes because they love those first round corners, but I something is just gnawing at me thinking that they do like Jahmyr Gibbs a lot.
It's been reported now by like Daniel Jeremiah and Albert Breer that Gibbs has interest within the Bengals organization. I think part of that though is I think they kind of feel like if Emmanuel Forbes is not going to be there, like I'm not expecting Forbes to be there. So if he's gone, I think now there's some interest. Like Gibbs would be like a fail-safe, but I think if Forbes is here, like it's not really that much of a conversation,
Yep. Okay. So let's go. I'm with you. I'll go Forbes. So here are the positions to now watch. You've got defensive interior. Potentially, I mean, I guess you can go a lot of different ways, but edge rusher in there in the mix as well. Tight end now still becoming a big need. Running back potentially, and then offensive tackle. Those are all areas that should be or could be addressed here. Charbonnet, that's another guy I think the Bengals probably would really, really like. And then, of course, Laporta is an interesting guy too. But can you scroll down
Yeah.
below Herbig there? Yeah, Tucker Kraft. Okay, Tajay Spears. That seems more like a next round type of guy. So, again, the conversation to me, John, whether it's Roshan Johnson, whether it's Zach Sharp, are you wanting the guy right now to replace Joe Mixon, or are you not? I know our guys at Locked On Bengals, they had a quote from Brian Callahan kind of talking up Mixon, but there's also there are reports all out there also that the Bengals are kind of making an ultimatum too, right? Like so to Mixon in terms of a pay cut and all that sort of thing. So I think Callahan really values Mixon and what he brings and everything. But, do the Bengals want to get that guy right now, that potential 3-down replacement? Or do they say Mixon still got a lot in the tank? We still value him. We're going to work on that contract of his and get the supplemental piece like a Samaje Perine, and then you wait for running back that way.
Yeah, this is really between Laporta and Charbonnet just because, I feel like Charbonnet is probably RB3 in the Bengals' mind behind Gibbs and Robinson, obviously. But Laporta is tight end 3 behind Kincaid and Mayer. And it's just about what position do they value more, what position are they more confident they can find later. I think they would probably go Charbonnet here, and I don't think that Charbonnet is a better running back than Laporta is a better tight end. Maybe if you want to talk about upside and everything that comes with that, but I think obviously they do have a history of drafting running backs in the second round. But you talked about, do they want a compliment for Mixon or do they want a replacement? I think Charbonnet can probably do both. Like regardless of what happens with Mixon this year, like he can spill as like that receiving back, as a guy you can trust at least someone in pass protection, or he can grow into that role. I think they're not going to be too pressed about taking a tight end. They might be surprised that Laporta is here, but I think certain factors would have them leaning towards Charbonnet.
Can you look and see who, just out of curiosity, just go tight end and see who's still available at this point?
Yeah, I got you. Yeah, so obviously I saw Luke Shoemaker, like one of the next up. Tucker Kraft as well. Brendan Strange, I think, makes a lot of sense in the third. Davis Allen as like a third through maybe even fifth. Zach Kuntz, Josh Wiley, Will Mallory. There's still a lot of tight ends left, and I feel like that's how they're going to look at this. Like, obviously, Laporta makes a lot of sense. We took him last week, but I feel like they probably want a running back more just because they haven't really done anything to replace Samaje Perine.
Okay. I'm with you.
Let's do it. So far, this is it's not a best case scenario, but it's pretty close.
I was going to say those are two very good players and two good picks, I think. Yeah. So the one guy I didn't get a chance to preview just towards the top there was the Hodges Tomlinson from TCU. I really was curious about him. I know we already picked a corner, so it doesn't really matter. But this, I meant more if the Bengals did not get the corner early, Hodges Tomlinson, I wanted to see a little bit more on him in terms of like, hey, is he just strictly going to be a slot at the next level? How's he work on the boundary? That sort of thing. Just a guy that kind of intrigues me a little bit, particularly because of the lineage and, potential value in the middle rounds. Regardless, we did not review him. So we need to probably look here for the Bengals: IDL, edge, offensive tackle, and tight end.
I'm gonna throw receiver in there just because I feel like this is probably the earliest that they would take a receiver, but I feel like with how the board is right now, like Marvin Mims makes a lot of sense.
That's an intriguing pick right there. Yeah.
He's a vertical slot. They need depth at the slot long term after Tyler Boyd, and like we can talk about Brendan Strange for sure. Like he makes a ton of sense. Isaiah McGuire makes a ton of sense too. They have options here. I think PFF is really high on Mims. He's probably consensus wise he's probably like the mid third. I think Brendan Strange, his average draft positions in the fourth round, he's probably going to go before that. I think there's a lot of buzz on him, so I think Strange makes sense here. McGuire makes sense, and if Mims is here and he's the best player available, I could definitely see that happening too.
Yeah, and is it Schoonmaker?
Schoonmaker.
Schoonmaker. Um, that's an interesting one too. Man, where are you leaning?
I want to lean Mims, but I feel like I it's just because I didn't scroll down. Like I think the actual board will reflect Strange being closer to maybe even an early third round pick. So I feel like finding him in the late third round when they still haven't taken a tight end, I think that makes a lot of sense. There's just not a defensive lineman that's like screaming like I need to take him. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. Yeah, I mean, I guess Mims is just I'm looking at the value there, and I'm going, that's interesting. But they really need a tight end at this point, and that well may be getting pretty dry unless you wait till late.
I'm fine with Strange, honestly.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Well,
Okay.
let's go ahead and do it.
All right.
Good. Because
how are we doing so far?
I think we're doing all right. They do seem to be on track to take a receiver because they didn't take one last year. But yeah, like they're still going to value taking a tight end at some point for sure. So let's see here. We don't have a ton of glaring names just sticking out to me. Kobe Turner and Moro Ajomo are two popular guys who are always seem to be available at this point. Nick Herberg, I don't really know a ton about him, but he's projected to go probably in the third round as well. Any ones that sticking out to you?
Yeah, Ojomo. Do you have offensive tackle in there too, or just tight end?
Yeah, I can sort that with that. So Nick Saldivri, he makes a lot of sense, like a third, fourth guy. But other than that, not a ton. Like I know Warren McClendon has some fans, Parker Blake being one of them, but him being injured right now, not testing, he's probably going to go a little bit later than this. So maybe not an offensive tackle at this point, unless we're down with Saldivri. But yeah, like they might be looking at a defensive lineman at this point. They still want to get that position. It's just that it really does feel like they need one more pick in like the first 150 and so to really get all these needs, but one need will essentially be sacrificed.
Yeah. Yeah, this is also where you got to look at what happens with Jonah Williams this weekend, right?
Right.
That could change the trajectory of their draft. I don't know, man. I'm thinking one of the either Herbig, Turner, or Ojomo. That's kind of where I'm leaning there. I don't think the tackle Saldiveri's the route to take there. I think they probably go developmental later at this point with these names on the board.
Yeah, I think Herbig makes sense just because he's probably the best value at this point.
Value.
Still feels the need. Yeah. So let's go ahead and take him. Again, don't really know anything about him. That's probably not very good for the draft being a day away. So, okay. Well, we got Ivan Pace Jr. still staring at us. He's fallen this far.
That's an interesting one. Yeah.
Yeah. Keaton Mitchell, if you want to double dip, he's connected to the Bengals a little bit. Here's DTR, Dorian Thompson Robinson.
So just so you know about Herbig, for those who, and I'm a little bit educating myself a little bit, 20 sacks the past 2 seasons, nice. 9 in 21, 11 last year. I'm looking at 30 tackles for loss the past 2 seasons, 15 and a half last year, 14 and a half the year prior. Kind of a linebacker edge tweener guy. He weighed in around 230 in college last year, so a little smaller, but that could be one of those movable piece guys, maybe a Davis Gaither type of guy that Anarumo would like to do some stuff with. So anyway, a little bit on him. What we have here now is you said Ivan Pace and
well, I think Saldiri makes a little bit more sense here. Like they not so secretly love day 3 offensive linemen. They've drafted one in like 15 of the past 20 drafts. They could still use some competition at like either guard spot.
Carter Warren
from Pitt. It's just hard, man. Like there doesn't unless they get a tackle that falls to them in round 1, it's hard kind of matching them with a tackle after that, and just because it's not a very good class.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say either. Let's see who else was there. Yeah. You got DTR out there too.
Yeah.
I think it might be a little early for that. Would have to probably be a little bit later in the draft for them to go there. But Saldivari or Pace for me, and I would be fine with either one of those.
I'm down with Saldivari. I've heard nothing but good things about him as a person, and again, just a development offensive lineman day 3. That's typically down the Bengals pass. Let's go with him.
Okay.
A long way between rounds 5 and 6.
You're probably not going to make a lot of friends skipping on Ivan Pace there, but that's all right. That's
we went with him last week. We gave him props.
Yeah. There's DTR right there, and this would probably be where they would try and make a move for someone like that if they wanted to. Again, they met with him, so that would show. Obviously they're definitely interested there. Mafi from UCLA, some people like him too. Travis Dye, that poor guy, productive guy, just blew out his knee as a super senior last year, late in the year. That's not good for him. Yeah, I mean, do you dare go backup quarterback here? Do we look at punter at this point? I mean, maybe next round as well.
Well, I think you backup quarter is a little bit more valuable than punter to me. And I mean, you had 5 picks, right? You basically secured all 5 needs.
Corner, running back, tight end, and last pick
edge.
Was edge and then offensive tackle. Yep.
So I'm not against taking a quarterback that you believe has some upside to just develop behind Burrow. The only I could see them double dipping at running back if they want to completely remake that group. Evan Hull makes a ton of sense as college football's leader for receptions last year. He's characterized as an Energizer bunny by the Northwestern staff for how hard he works in practice. So if they want to double dip at running back, that makes sense. But I think the 6th round is fine to take DTR because, again, I don't know how many roster spots you have open. You basically handle all your needs. You can have a little luxury here.
Yeah. Can you go? We didn't do IDL? Can you look at that real quick?
Yeah. So one really stuck out. Not Jonah Tybee. He's got like my wingspan. Desjuan Johnson, who has met with the Bengals at least twice in the pre-draft process. He's like 47 and a half careers tackle for losses, but I feel like he's probably a round 7 guy because he might go undrafted, and picking so late in the 7th round is essentially just taking a guy that you're going to target in undrafted free agency.
Yeah. All right. So would we say DTR?
Yeah, I'm down with that.
All right.
We already got a scouting report, so.
Nah.
But yeah, this is a solid draft. Realistic? Who knows? Who's to say? But
yeah. And your guy. Oh no, there he is, Desjuan Johnson, right there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nealon is interesting from SC. But yeah, I mean, if they're showing interest in Johnson, that usually is pretty indicative that they're,
Ronnie Bell would make sense too. Slot receiver.
Yeah.
I think a team captain out of Michigan. But yeah, it's probably between these two. And I think Johnson's, I think he's got upside. And I think they need like a penetrating 3 tech. So let's go ahead and finish the draft with him.
All right.
I'm predicting a B plus. I don't think they love taking running backs in the 2nd round. Whoever does the PFF. Oh, okay, B minus for Sharp. D for Brendan Strange. That's an A. That's an A total grade. It's not bad.
There you go. I love that. Gotta love A's. Gotta love when you get an A. What is your favorite pick of this class here?
It's Forbes. Pick? It's Forbes.
Really?
He's a top 15 player in this class at one of the most important positions. He's going to start next year. He's going to play this year because injuries are inevitable at cornerback, specifically for the Bengals. And he's got everything that I value: ball skills, tenacity as a run defender. He'll grow into his frame as much as he can, but even if he doesn't, he plays bigger than the size. Like Charbonnet is great. I think he'll do fine at running back. I think Brandon Strange fits well with what James Casey looks for in tight ends. And I think your day 3 guys are nice developmental guys. But Forbes, he's going to make a bigger impact than people think. And it's why he's probably going to go in the top 25 picks.
Look, for not, doing trades and, working out a Jonah Williams thing, I mean, this is pretty much positional need and talent as good as it can kind of, I don't know if it's absolutely perfect, but it's one of the better ways that you can go there. Strange, I got to look more into him, quite honestly. You're saying he's some have him more day 3, and you're saying he could be round 3. So I want to look a little bit more into him. But good stuff, John. I think, hey, when you get an A, especially from PFF, you got to like that. So thanks for firing that up. Let us know what you think about that draft. And
no more mock drafts.
No more mock drafts. We are done. We are done. We are done. So that being said, we are going to bring up the interview with Leigh Steinberg. Had the opportunity to talk with him, and a lot of fun. Went down memory lane, and of course, he's got a great agent academy coming up, and we'll hear about that. And of course, Steinberg Sports, he's one of the most iconic guys, John. He's just Jerry Maguire was based after him, in case people didn't know, loosely, but based after him. Kajana Carter made a cameo in that movie, by the way, in case you didn't know, a client of his. We mentioned a few of those, but without further ado, here is our interview with Mr. Leigh Steinberg. We spoke to him a little bit earlier, and it was a lot of fun talking with him. So enjoy this. I know I did, and we did. On the NFL calendar, and of course it calls for one of the biggest guests you can get, especially this time of year as it goes with the NFL draft. I am Anthony Cosenza. This is the Orange and Black Insider, part of the Cincy Jungle Podcast Network, and I am joined by none other than NFL legend, super agent Leigh Steinberg, joining us once again. And last time we had John, it was a very special time in Bengals schedule, I guess, Bengals time, given that they were on the way to the Super Bowl, and now here we are a couple of years later, NFL draft, and you know a thing or two about this weekend, don't you, sir?
It's my favorite day of the year. It's all the hopes and dreams and practices and sacrifice, both for an athlete and his extended families, from Pop Warner on, have all led up to this event. And then it breaks in joy when the player finally gets drafted. And even if he's disappointed by what round he's drafted, and he's still happy that a player took him. So it's my favorite day of the year. And some of the players go to Kansas City this week, but a lot of them will stay home, and they get to have their extended families, their aunts, uncles, their high school coach, everybody with them. And some of those things are actually getting sponsored now. So it's draft day by Wingstop or some other group.
Yeah. Everybody's got their hand in something this weekend. That's for sure. But happy to have you with us talking about the NFL draft. I guess before kind of we get into some of your Bengals-centric experiences with some players and some other facets of the draft, I guess, one thing that comes to mind every time this event rolls around is, you see things on TV. Yeah, I've been to the draft and covered it as well for the website, so I got a different look at that too. But you see things on TV in terms of when the players get called, and some of the drama that the TV likes to build up. The networks like to build up. How close to accurate is all of that, or is it a bit unpredictable, or is it a little bit more predictable than some of these networks like to play on?
So just understand that what makes it hard, if you're not an agent or a player, to accurately follow is that teams are not sharing their intimate draft secrets with other teams through the press. So you read these statements by general managers and team personnel, and there's a generalized amnesty on lying or misleading this week. So if a general manager goes up to St. Peter after his life is over at the doors to heaven, and St. Peter says, "What's the most egregious sin you did on earth. And he said, well, I misled our public about what we were going to do in the draft. St. Peter would say, come right in. So what you have is it's very difficult to follow. One of the biggest questions I'm always asked is, why are they taking 10 full minutes to make a pick in the first round when they obviously have had a draft board for months, have done computer simulations as to exactly who might be there when their turn comes up, have already done the pro and cons of that, have already decided who they're taking under any possible combination. They're trading. They're listening to trade offers from a team that wants to come into their position, or conversely, they're trying to move into a higher position. But the point is, that's what happening. Now, if you represent a player, Patrick Mahomes is going through scouting. Well, teams are being very honest about what their intentions are. So the key is to recognize who those teams are that don't just like your player, but are so excited they want to take them off the board. And when you know who those teams are, it's not such a mysterious process. You're pretty sure that it might not be team one, but one of those four teams that has stepped out and been real welcoming in the draft process is probably going to be the team. So you prepare your player for that and for when he might go, so you don't have that embarrassing situation like where Brady Quinn ended up doing a virtual striptease because he kept dropping below perceived draft stock.
Yeah, it was the sport coat came off, and then I think he had like the vest and that. Yeah. I felt bad, obviously, when that situation took place.
It feels terrible, but here's the thing, Anthony. Just remember, at the end of it, this player who the experts projected to go number 6, who went number 15 instead, is still the 15th best player in the entire country, and is going to get a big contract. So they make it look like, the tragic collapse of someone's hopes and dreams. It's not. At the end of it, there's still a high draft pick. It just wasn't where the prognosticators said they'd go.
Yep, building the drama. We're talking, of course, to NFL giant Leigh Steinberg of Steinberg Sports and Entertainment, and, of course, the architect behind the Agent Academy. We'll hear about that in just a little bit here. I have a question for you, because obviously I know quite a bit about your storied history with the league and the players you've represented. We'll get to some of the former Bengals you represented as well. But have you ever had a player that was dealt and traded on draft day, whether they demanded it themselves or the team just kind of happened to move them for a pick? The reason I ask this, and it's okay if the answer is no, but the reason I ask this is because the Bengals are in a situation now where they signed a guy who protected your client, Patrick Mahomes, Orlando Brown Jr. They signed him, and now their former starting left tackle, Jonah Williams, is potentially asking for a trade here. That's something Bengals fans are monitoring this weekend. So I don't know. Have you?
The best way of getting traded is not to say anything.
Yeah.
Because what happens when a player steps out and says, you must trade me publicly, then what happens is the rest of the league knows that the incumbent team's got a problem on their hands and offers ridiculously weak trade offers. And it makes it harder to trade the player for someone respectfully. If you think that another place is better, that's fine, but make all that behind the scenes to give your team the best chance to actually this is unintended consequences where you ask for the public trade and it makes it much harder to trade you.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens there. I mean, I'm in total agreement with you with the fact that the player diminishes the return for the team when that trade me kind of ultimatum is put out there. So we'll see what happens with the Bengals in that situation there. I do want to transition a little bit because you have a lot of history with the Cincinnati Bengals, particularly in the 1990s, with some high draft picks, be it Dan Wilkinson, Ki-Jana Carter, Akili Smith, David Klingler. I want to start with the latter real quick because when we were talking about getting you on, I did a little bit of research, And I found this image, and I want to share this image with you. But there was a bit of a surprise with David Klingler, if I remember correctly. And I think you had said, this is a picture of you and him on the couch, I believe, and you look pretty shocked in that picture. I believe you had said that there has been minimal, if not no, conversations with the Bengals with you, or seemingly interest in David Klingler during this draft. And so you were kind of shocked when the Bengals pulled the trigger there, particularly when they still had Boomer Esiason on the team.
So that's ESPN on Live with David Klingler and my son. And we're watching the draft. So we've got it all charted out. Like I told you, hot teams. Well, Cincinnati wasn't one of them. So we were just sitting waiting for the next picks to come up because we knew he'd be picked later. Well, the Bengals picked him, and to my everlasting regret, I said, "Oh no, Mike Brown." Which you would have said publicly, but it all started in 1975, where I had Steve Bartkowski, and then the second player who asked me to represent him was a punter wide receiver named Pat McAnally. And back then, there was no guaranteed right of representation. The team could simply say, we don't deal with agents. And that's how it started. Mike Brown said, well, I'm not talking to you. We don't deal with agents. And that got the relationship going about the way it continued.
It's a funny, definitely a funny anecdote, funny story. In that image I came across, I was like, wow, that's just an image that speaks a lot of words, particularly with, unfortunately, how the trajectories of some of those picks went, the careers of those. So, we're talking, of course, with Leigh Steinberg, mega agent and the inspiration behind the Jerry Maguire movie, and just catching up with him, obviously, during draft weekend. Nothing like talking some football with him. Some of the other people that you have represented, one particular, and I think he made a cameo in the Jerry Maguire movie, if I'm not mistaken, is Kajana Carter. And he surprisingly, when I think the Bengals traded up and took him number 1 overall, unfortunately, the knee injury, kind of derailed his career, so to speak. But did you have an idea that the Bengals were going to do that with Kajana Carter going forward? I mean, how far in advance was this kind of in the works going into that weekend?
So that was 1995. And I had 2 players that were slated probably to go number 1 and number 2 in the draft, because Carolina had the first pick. And I had a quarterback, Kerry Collins, that they especially wanted. So I remember talking to Carolina and them saying, we're going to take Kerry Collins number 1, and Jacksonville was number 2, and they were going to take Tony Baselli. No, Jacksonville was number 2. They were going to take Kajana Carter. But right in the middle of that, Cincinnati traded up and took Carolina's space. Cincinnati was 5 and Carolina was 1, and they flipped spots. And so, again, teams are pretty honest about their interest and intention, as long as the agent doesn't cross-fertilize the information you're getting. In other words, let it out to other teams. So we knew that he liked that. And of course, Mike Brown's singular focus is always on Ohio State. And Kajana didn't go there. He went to Penn State, but he's from Westerville, Ohio, which is a suburb of Columbus. So I think they had a special feeling. And you'll never really have a sense for just how great Kajana would have been, because he had a non-contact injury where he blew out his knee and nobody hit him. He just said, my foot stuck in the rug.
Stuck in the rug. Oh my gosh. That, and that unfortunately has been the story of a lot of different high picks from the Cincinnati Bengals, be it just not working out or injuries. And unfortunately too, their own stadium was kind of one that derailed quite a few careers here. Transitioning, if you would, just a little bit to this year's class, and kind of what are you seeing and what are you hearing? What are you expecting to happen over the course of this weekend here? Any big surprises towards the top of the draft? And of course, if you're looking at the Cincinnati Bengals in that first round there, where they're picking at 28, where do you think that they may be looking, or have you heard any rumors on that front?
Not much, but the reality is today in football, it's all about the franchise quarterback, the quarterback that you can win because of rather than with, a quarterback that you can build around for the next 10 to 12 years, and who, importantly, in critical adversity, someone has thrown a couple interceptions, the crowd's booing, the game is getting out of hand. What does he do there? Can he elevate his level of play and take a team to and through the Super Bowl? So that's what teams are looking for. They're looking for Joe Burrow. They're looking for Patrick Mahomes. They're looking for Aaron Rodgers or Justin Herbert or Baltimore's quarterback and Lamar Jackson. And so I think you could see as many as 4 or 5 quarterbacks go. Now, if they're ranked the same as a position player, because of the intense desire and the fact that a team never wants to be that high in draft order again,
Right.
they're going to get bumped up and picked before. So it's entirely possible that in the first 6 or 7 picks, you'll see Bryce Young go to Carolina, and then O.J. McDuffie go to Indianapolis, and somebody will take Anthony Richardson from Florida. Someone will take Will Levis from Kentucky, and maybe even Hooker. And so I think you'll see that happen. In a normal draft, the first pick would be the defensive tackle from Georgia, but he got into some off-the-field shenanigans, and teams are petrified to take a draft pick higher who underachieves, because then they're stuck with they paid the bonus, they have all that money against the cap, and now the player doesn't work out. So I think that's the way the draft goes. Quarterback's pretty high, and then after that, you'll start seeing offensive and defensive linemen.
And then, of course, I mean, I'm sure you'll agree that, with the way that the CBA now was restructured about a little over a decade now and continues to be, that the fact that, rookie salaries and wages are far less than what some of those contracts you negotiated for those top picks for the Cincinnati Bengals. So, I mean, I guess what I'm saying is that teams are way more apt to take a little bit more of a chance on some of these players because the financial risk is far, far lower than what it used to be 15 plus years ago.
It's lower in the sense that the salary years are capped, but you're still paying a big signing bonus in those 10 to 15 picks. The first player drafted probably gets $24 million. And the cap experienced its biggest one-year hike ever. And the football is rolling in money. They did a new TV contract where for the next 10 years, Fox went up by 83%, and so did CBS. And so the sport is just, whether it's from stadium naming rights or luxury boxes or merchandise and memorabilia or now gambling or everything, TV revenues off the top. And so teams are in especially great shape this year.
Talking with Leigh Steinberg, and we're going to hear about the Agent Academy he has coming up, along with all of the great things that he does for the sports community. Before we do, you mentioned both their names quickly. I got to ask you about this. You obviously represent the great Patrick Mahomes. Joe Burrow has now really ascended the Bengals to a conference powerhouse, and these two teams have clashed over the past 2 years in some of the best football games of the year, be it postseason or regular season. I would just love to get your thoughts as you represent Patrick Mahomes. Like I said, your thoughts on this rivalry, how it's budding, and really kind of becoming, usually you see this kind of animosity or friendly competition, whatever. So somewhere in between. Usually you see it in the division, not really across divisions like this, but these two teams are really starting to kind of build a really great rivalry.
I remember going to golf tournaments back in the day that had Dan Marino and John Elway and Warren Moon and Steve Young and Troy Aikman there. And these people ended up the best of friends because they're a few people who can really understand what the position's about, what the pressures are, and they end up being big admirers of each other. So I can't go into the head of those two players, but I will tell you it would greatly surprise me if they didn't have a mutual admiration society.
I would agree with you. I think there's a lot of mutual respect there. I think just because both teams are so very good, both quarterbacks are so very good, that's where the competition is and that's where the fire burns. So you can congratulations on all of your success over many, many years representing so many players in the league. I know you've got a couple of special projects. You have a great, and I'm going to put the link in our description to the Amazon link to your book, The Agent, published a handful of years ago, My 40-Year Career Making Deals and Changing the Game. So we'll put that in there and promote that as well. But you also have a special project, The Agent Academy. I'm going to pull up the Twitter account and we'll put that in the description as well. Tell us a little bit about that, if you would, how people could get involved and, just what you got going there.
So we have two of them coming up. One is Las Vegas, which is a couple days, July 23rd and 24th. And then we're doing one September 1st on the net, which will be done via Zoom. So what I wanted to do was pass down the accumulated knowledge of 49 years to a new generation of sports professionals. And they come out of law school and business school and sports marketing and undergrad and very enthusiastic. But we thought, can we train them? And what we do is we teach about the art of recruiting. And then we have an exercise where they go and they actually have to recruit a real player. We talk about the art of negotiating, and then they actually have to go out and negotiate. We talk about how to market and to brand and to deal with NILs. And we have exercises on that. And then crisis control. What do you do when the athlete, hopefully you prevented it, but what do you do when the athlete gets in trouble?
Yeah.
And so, and charitable and community, as you know, our practice is about athletes retracing their roots and going back to the high school community, setting up a scholarship fund, or working with the church or Boys and Girls Club, going to the university community and helping with retrofit the weight room or give a special scholarship. And then at the pro level, a charitable foundation, which has the leading business figures, political figures, and community leaders that executes a program. So it's work done putting the 200th single mother and her family in the first home they'll ever own. Or Patrick Mahomes 15 and the Mahomies, which helps youth charities. So we explain to them how to do that. And so this is going to be a new generation of ethical, principled young agents, but they've been trained with specific skills.
That's awesome. And I mean, I know we've got a lot of readers and listeners on Cincy Jungle and on this program that are aspiring, sports agents doing a lot of different things in the industry. So I know they will be interested in that at the Agent Academy on Twitter. And of course, the great Leigh Steinberg joining us. Thank you so much for your time. It's always, anytime we get a legend on this show, I'm thrilled, and you are most definitely that. And you have a lot of ties for the Cincinnati Bengals. I think I told you the last time you were on, I'm a Southern California guy, Orange County guy. So I know you do a lot of stuff with my alma mater at Concordia University. And I know I see on Fox 11 quite a bit as well, breaking down the NFL. And I always tune in and always give a little tip of the cap from afar to you, sir. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Anthony.
Thanks for your time. Take care. That was Leigh Steinberg The inspiration behind the Jerry Maguire movie, guy who's represented a lot of big time players, past and present, and it was awesome talking to him a little bit earlier. And man, what a guy! Storied career, John. Storied career, to say the very, very least.
Oh no, Mike Brown.
I know. It's not the. I mean, it's pretty funny. It's pretty
That's
funny.
gold.
And I, you know what? I didn't expect him to say that when I saw that picture. I thought it was, when I read about that picture, it was more like, oh wow, I didn't think, the Bengals were interested in David Klingler because they didn't show a lot of pre-draft interest. But it was a little bit of something else, I think, as well, that elicited that reaction. Well, it's been a long one. It's a little later for some. Look, let's drop the mic and get out of here. We've got a big weekend ahead, John. And what do you have as we close up for this Wednesday evening?
I got nothing, dude. I'm just totally burnt out from a bunch of things that probably don't matter. A bunch of noise, as Steinberg kind of says, that isn't real. It's all being percolated for just keeping us amused, keeping us dancing around what the truth probably is. The Bengals will end up taking good players. They may not be the players that you expect, and we'll talk a little bit more about that tomorrow, but I'm just thankful that this totally unnecessary elongated process is finally at its end.
Yeah, and the most we can do, my friend, is just try and have some fun with it, right? I mean, there's a lot of coverage, there is a lot of work that's involved, so we'll have some fun with it, and we'll be having a lot going forward ahead. We'll bring you Mohamed Sanu tomorrow and all kinds of different draft coverage. Looking forward to that. John, take care, and we'll catch up a lot this weekend, my friend.
Yes, sir. See you guys.
All right. Take care.